Try not to fear, but the eclipses are here. What's up, everyone? We're back with another astrology shot, and this time we're talking about eclipses. So this eclipse is kind of special for a few reasons, which I want to get into. One of which is not that it's on 420. There's nothing chill about eclipses, but I hope you're finding your own way to be chill today. But in the world, probably not, because things tend to go a little nuts in the world when the eclipses arrive on the scene. So first of all, this is our first eclipse in our little eclipse season. We've got 2 this time. And this one is happening at 29 degrees Aries. So this is our first eclipse in a new sign polarity. We're still working with the themes of Taurus and Scorpio. Those ones are still going on. In fact, our second eclipse of the season on May 5th will be in the sign of Scorpio. But we are in this phase of changeover between eclipse polarity themes. So we're going to start to see new themes coming in that we're going to be working with for the next 18 months under this eclipse. So pay attention to what's going on in your life. This eclipse is lighting up a new part of your chart, the Aries part of your chart, which has been pretty active for the last month and longer if you count Jupiter's movement through Aries. So there's already been stuff going on. There's already a story here, which is, we know what the story is. The eclipse might bring a different story. It might bring a development in the story. It's up to you to pay attention. What's coming up around this eclipse? Doesn't have to be on the day. Could be the week before or in the weeks following. Eclipses are funny like that. So yeah, we're getting this new energy coming in around the sign of Aries, and we'll eventually get our Libra story. That'll be coming in the fall. So we're going to be getting about half the story here, start to introduce itself. This is a hybrid eclipse, which means that in some parts of the world, it'll be total, and in other parts of the world, it'll be annular, which is basically where there's like a ring around the sun. So it doesn't the moon doesn't completely block out the sun. So let me show you. Okay, so this is where the eclipse will be physically visible. This red line is going to show us where we'll be able to see a total eclipse. And the lines around it are like decreasing in intensity. So 75% is like, these are different variations of partial eclipses. So if you're in Australia, you'll definitely be able to see some of that eclipse. If you're in Indonesia or Singapore, you'll be able to see some of that eclipse as well. Okay, so let's look at the chart here. So again, I've cast this chart for Washington, D.C. That's the capital of the nation of which I reside. You would want to do the same for wherever you live. And certainly you could interpret this chart relative to the events of the nation. I'm going to keep it pretty general here. I'm just going to be talking about the fact that this is happening at 29 degrees Aries. So this is the anaretic degree. There's something urgent here. Aries, this is a sign of sovereignty. This is a sign of the individual. This is a sign of impulse. This is a sign, it's ruled by Mars. So there's certain, correspondences here with weaponry, with farming tools, cooking tools, anything kind of sharp would fit in this area. But yeah, certainly Aries on a macro level deals with the individual rights. And a lot of those, especially here in the country in which I live, have been coming under attack severely in the last couple of years. So yeah, there's an urgency here. There's a call to act. There's a call to maybe defend. This eclipse is going to be ruled by Mars in Cancer. So there's a lot that could be said about Mars in Cancer, but one, it's a protective and defensive sign. Something that really comes to mind when I think about this eclipse is, there's something that we're fighting for. There's this urgency of something that we're fighting for, something that we're fighting to achieve, or something we're fighting to defend. But something that really keeps coming to my mind is, how do we get people to care? I'm going to get real with you for a second. So the other day I saw the footage of the, the police going in to basically respond to the school shooting in Nashville. And I'd never seen that before. I've never seen body cam footage in a school like that. And that same day, I got my daughter's school acceptance letter. And also that day, I added my son to our insurance. And it just, we're paying so much money every month in insurance. And I just sat there holding my baby, crying, because I just feel like this country doesn't give a fuck about kids. And yeah, so like what's coming to my mind when I look at this is, it's like, how do we get people to care about something? Like Mars and Cancer. Cancer is a really tender sign. Mars and Cancer wants to fight for something that it's feeling. Mars is either like fueled by its feelings, or it's reactive to its feelings, or there's like a protective mechanism there. There's also there's also this theme with Mars and Cancer of winning something by retreating. And I have this image in my mind when I think about Mars and Cancer of, there is a battle strategy of retreating, like knowing when to pull back, knowing when to sheath your weapon, knowing when to surrender, knowing when to put your weapons down, knowing when the fight is over, knowing when, we're going to keep losing if we don't just put a stop to this right now. So I'm nervous to forecast so far ahead. This eclipse is still 3 weeks away from when I'm creating this video. However, we are nearing this full moon as I'm recording this. And these are things that are big topics here. At the beginning of Jupiter's movement into Aries, I forecasted that the topic of weaponry and school shootings and guns are going to become big topics. Jupiter in Aries says, I have the right to purchase weapons and carry them and all that. But it also is, what are the effects of that? And, it's also raising that as like a bigger issue. Jupiter often deals with legislation and the law. And in Aries, it's also the individual, right? So this is something that is coming into fullness at this time. We've been working with these themes. I knew that these themes would become bigger at the beginning of this transit, but here we are. Jupiter is in the crosshairs of this eclipse. So obviously, I have my personal beliefs and my personal opinions about what I'd like to see happen. I'm trying to be objective here, but a lot of times when a planet gets placed in the crosshairs of the eclipse like this, things aren't too good for this planet. So here we have Jupiter, our beliefs sort of feeling squashed, or Jupiter also representing hope or optimism or faith. It might be harder to feel those things right now under the fire of this eclipse. The other thing that makes me hopeful that we'll see some sort of movement towards gun reform is not just this Jupiter here under the beams of the eclipse, but it's also the fact that Mars ruling this eclipse is in its fall. So we've seen this pattern earlier in the year when Venus was involved with the eclipses from a diminished position, and we saw women's rights being attacked as well as those of the LGBTQ communities. We also saw finances, another Venus thing, come into detriment, to use that word there. We saw significant financial losses. We saw interest rates hike, all going on at the last eclipse cycle and the one before that. So what can we expect with Mars in its fall? And I'm thinking that there might be something where, we're forced to lay some weapons down in one way or another. Moon and Mars are in mutual reception here. I'm not sure how much that really helps, especially when the moon is being eclipsed when the moon is eclipsing the sun, basically. So yeah, I'm not really sure how I'd like to interpret that other than, maybe there's a way that we can work together. Is there a way that we can compromise in order to protect and also hold on to what's sovereign? So is there a way to compromise here? Again, we're not going to solve all of our problems right here at the first eclipse in the series. It's going to be presenting some. So I think this is something that we're going to be working with significantly this year and next year for that matter, because there's another eclipse here at the end of 2023 where we have a Scorpio eclipse, and it's ruled by Mars in Libra, which is the sign of its detriment. So we're going to continue to see this be an important conversation here moving into the end of this year. But that eclipse journey is going to continue into 2024 as well. So this is going to start a bigger conversation. I think it's going to be about weapon reform, gun reform, and school shootings. But I don't know what else it could be about. So we're going to have to be paying attention. I think it's also going to be about the rights of individuals and the rights that we have to be ourselves, and not just in America, but in other places too. So on the topic of weapons being put down and retreating, there's a lot of pressure on Russia right now to do that. So we'll have to kind of watch and see how this is going to show up. There might be some themes directly related to Australia or Indonesia or Singapore or that part of the world where the eclipse is actually visible as well. So that would be something to watch for. So that's a little bit about this eclipse. There's something urgent about it. Pay attention. There's been a lot going on in the Aries house. Pay attention to what's coming up in your life. Where Aries is by house is going to start to be a bigger deal at this time and for the next 18 months. So pay attention to what's coming up for you around this eclipse. And for right now, that is your solar hybrid eclipse astrology shot of the day. Bye. Thanks for tuning in with me today. For more astrology in your world, you can connect with me on all platforms at Astro Catherine. You can also book your reading with me at catherineurban.com. And hey, you may also want to join Cauldron, my monthly astrology meetup.